Hey everyone, welcome back. We're doing a deep dive today on something super interesting. Wipro's Q3 FY25 earnings.
Yeah.
And we've got a bunch of sources here. We've got their official financial statements, the press release,
hmm
and even some commentary from the earnings call.
What's interesting here is that on the surface, Wipro seems to be kind of like defying gravity a little bit.
Really?
Yeah, they're pulling off record high operating margins even while the global economy is, not looking so hot.
Right.
And they gave their employees raises, so that's interesting.
That's almost like a magic trick. How is that even possible? I guess let's start with the basics. How did Wipro actually perform in Q3?
Well, revenue growth was modest, just 0.1% quarter over quarter, but they actually beat their own projections.
Oh, okay.
So that actually hints that there's some underlying strength there.
Interesting.
But what really jumps out is that operating margin, a
Yeah.
whopping 17.5%. That's a
Wow.
12-quarter high, and it makes you wonder how they're managing to squeeze out those profits.
Especially with those raises.
Ex-
So strong margins, beating projections. What about profit?
hmm
Did that also, keep up?
Absolutely. Net income saw solid growth, both year over year and compared to the previous quarter.
Nice.
So clearly they're making money, which is always a good sign.
Okay, so they're profitable,
Yeah.
but how about their future growth?
hmm
Did they bring in a ton of new deals that will keep revenue coming in the future?
So that's where things get a little bit more well-nuanced.
Okay.
They closed 17 large deals for a total of $1 billion.
Which sounds pretty good.
It does sound impressive on its own. However, that's actually down from the last quarter.
Well,
So that makes you wonder if the momentum they had with those deals is actually sustainable or not.
okay, so a little bit of a question mark on those future deals.
Yeah,
But let's get back to that margin magic that we talked about earlier.
right.
How are they getting these awesome margins while facing economic headwinds and giving employees raises? I mean, those things usually eat into profits.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But when you look closely, it seems like Wipro is like laser focused on operational efficiency,
Okay.
both in their core business and also in their consulting arm, Capco.
Gotcha.
And we're seeing evidence of this all across the board.
So are they just kind of like getting lean and mean, doing more with less?
Exactly. And they're also using those classic margin boosting tactics as well.
Like what?
Things like maximizing employee utilization, so fewer people are just sitting around,
Right.
and then shifting more of the work offshore where labor costs can be lower.
Yeah, those are the tried and true methods. Is there anything else that they're doing to squeeze out those extra profits?
Yeah, so they've also gotten really strategic about their fixed price contracts,
Okay.
making sure that they're priced right and keeping costs under control while the project is ongoing.
All right.
And then there's the reduction in G&A expenses.
Speaking of which, what exactly are G&A expenses? Maybe give our listeners a quick refresher.
Of course. So G&A stands for General and Administrative Expenses. These are basically costs that are tied to just running the whole business.
Okay.
Things like rent and utility salaries for those administrative staff, not the people directly delivering projects to clients.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
So by trimming those overhead costs, that frees up more money that goes straight to the bottom line.
exactly. It's a classic way to boost margins, and it seems to be working well for Wipro.
Clever. Now, there's one more move that I thought was really interesting. And anyone who owns Wipro stock or is maybe thinking about it, this might be good news.
Oh, yeah.
They announced a big change to how they're returning profits to shareholders.
Oh, it's a pretty big change.
Yeah.
They're increasing the amount of net income that they're returning to shareholders.
Okay.
Starting in fiscal year 2026, which for Wipro starts April 1st, 2025.
So if you're a shareholder, you're going to have to wait till April 2025 to see those changes in your dividends.
That's right. And the increase is pretty substantial.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They're moving from a range of 45-50% to a full 70% or more of their net income.
Wow, that's a big jump. What does that mean for shareholders?
Well, they're open to using both dividends and share buybacks.
Okay.
So potentially more money going straight into your pocket if you own Wipro stock.
That's huge. So they're basically saying, hey, we're really confident in how profitable we're going to be in the future,
Exact.
but profit isn't everything, right? What about growth? What are the things impacting Wipro's ability to grow?
So it's a bit of a mixed bag, actually. The Americas are doing really well, showing some strong growth.
That's good.
Yeah, which is encouraging given that there's so much economic concern everywhere else.
Right, so that's good news, but I'm guessing there's some rough patches too.
Yeah, unfortunately, they're seeing some weakness in Europe and APMEA,
And remind me what APME stands for again.
Asia, Pacific, Middle East, and Africa.
Right, got it.
Mm.
So geographically, it's kind of a tale of two worlds. What about in specific industries? Any standouts or areas of concern?
Well, healthcare is continuing to do great,
Okay.
which is good for Wipro since they have a strong presence in that sector. But BFSI actually dipped this quarter.
That's interesting. With all this talk about financial disruption and everyone going digital, you'd think BFSI would be like a gold mine for companies like Wipro.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But they said that the dip was due to like seasonal factors.
Okay.
And what's interesting is that despite the dip, they're still seeing growth in BFSI year over year.
Okay.
So it might not be anything to really worry about.
So maybe just like a temporary blip in BFSI?
Could be.
Any other sectors worth watching?
EMR and the consumer sector are still lagging behind.
Right.
EMR is energy manufacturing and resources.
Right.
They need to catch up if Wipro wants to see more broad growth across sectors.
So it sounds like they're really relying on healthcare and I guess to some extent BFSI to be driving most of their growth right now.
Yeah, it seems that way.
But speaking of growth, there's another thing to consider, discretionary spending.
Right.
So are clients more willing to spend money on projects that they could maybe put off if they weren't feeling so great about the future? That's a really good sign about how confident people are in the economy.
Absolutely. And there are some positive signs coming out of the earnings call.
Oh, good. Tell me more.
So first, Capco, their consulting arm, is seeing both higher bookings and revenue.
Okay.
So this seems to suggest that clients are willing to invest in getting strategic advice.
Even in these times.
Even in these times, exactly.
Which makes sense. Even if companies are tightening their belts in some areas, they still need expert guidance to help them navigate this, rough economic landscape.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's another good sign. Wipro is seeing some life in discretionary spending within the Americas BFSI sector.
So not a big trend yet, but still a good thing, especially since BFSI is so important to Wipro's growth.
Exactly.
Okay, well, we've covered a lot here, but let's look ahead now.
Okay.
What did Wipro say they expect for next quarter?
So their guidance for revenue growth is in the range of a -1% to +1%, which sounds pretty cautious.
I was going to say, but you usually have but what is it this time?
You know me too well. This guidance is actually better than what they gave for the current quarter.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So they're feeling a bit more optimistic, even if they're not quite shouting it from the rooftops?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. They're being realistic about how uncertain the global economy is.
Right.
But their guidance does suggest there might be a little bit of optimism creeping in.
Okay, so to sum up Wipro's Q3, results are kind of a puzzle.
Yeah.
On one hand, they're showing they're in a good spot financially with good margins and their commitment to giving back more to shareholders.
Mm-hmm.
But then on the other hand, their future growth depends on a few key sectors like healthcare and BFSI.
Right.
And even though they seem a little more optimistic about next quarter, the whole global economic outlook is still a bit murky.
Yeah, that's true.
This is definitely a company we need to keep an eye on.
Definitely.
We'll be back with more in just a bit.
Looking forward to it. Now, there's something else about this Wipro story that I find interesting. It wasn't something they explicitly said in their guidance, but it came up again and again in the earnings call and in the press release.
All right, I'm intrigued. What is it?
AI.
AI. It's like everyone's talking about it these days.
It is.
How does it fit into Wipro's future, though?
Well, they weren't just name dropping it for no reason.
Okay.
They were talking about how they're really integrating AI solutions into their whole business strategy, using it to win new deals,
Right.
improve efficiency, and even make their customers' experiences better.
So they're not just hopping on the AI bandwagon. They're actually weaving it into everything they do.
Exactly. And remember those impressive margins we were talking about earlier?
I do.
AI could be a major factor in keeping those margins up, maybe even making them even better in the future.
Now that you mention it, I can see how that would work. But how can AI make a company like Wipro more profitable?
Well, think of it this way. AI can potentially automate tasks that people used to do.
Right.
And that means big cost savings.
That makes sense.
Plus, it can analyze tons of data and find patterns and insights that people might miss,
Interesting.
leading to, smarter decisions and just better overall efficiency.
So AI can help Wipro do more with less.
Exactly. But it's not only about saving money.
What else?
AI can also let them create completely new products and services,
Good.
which could open up whole new revenue streams for them.
So it's like a win-win. They reduce costs A&D,
Yeah.
they create these new ways to make money.
Exactly. And don't forget about the impact on customers, too.
Yeah.
AI can personalize those interactions, give faster and more accurate support, and it can even anticipate what the customer needs.
Okay.
So happier and more loyal customers.
It sounds like AI could be a real game changer if they use it the right way.
It could.
But are they actually in a good position to be like a leader in AI, or are they just kind of testing the waters?
That's the million-dollar question. It's still early, but there are a few things we can look at to figure out how serious they are.
All right, what are those clues?
First, look at their history of innovation.
Yeah.
Have they been putting money into AI research and development?
Okay.
Have they developed any AI solutions of their own or partnered with, the leading AI companies out there?
Well, they did mention some AI stuff they're using to win deals, so it sounds like they're not starting from scratch.
Right. Next, we have to look at their talent. Do they have people who really know AI and can, develop and implement these solutions?
Okay.
Are they attracting and keeping those top AI people?
It always comes back to talent, especially in a field like AI that's changing so fast.
Absolutely. The third thing is look at their clients.
Yeah.
Are they working with clients who actually want to use AI solutions? Are they going after industries that are, ripe for AI disruption?
Right. You need both the people who can make it and the people who want to buy it for AI to really take off.
Exactly. And lastly, their financial commitment.
Oh.
Are they actually putting their money where their mouth is when it comes to AI? Are they really investing enough resources into making it a priority?
So it's not enough to just talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
They have to back it up with action and money.
Exactly. By looking at these things, investors can start to form an opinion about whether Wipro is really all in on AI or if they're just playing around.
So while AI definitely has a lot of potential for them, it's important to see how they actually follow through with their strategy.
Absolutely.
Now, speaking of strategies, there's another part of the Wipro story that I want to dig into a little bit. Their consulting business, Capco.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that they're seeing a lot of growth.
I did.
What's driving that? Is it just because more people are spending money on consulting, or is there more to it than that?
Well, they are definitely benefiting from the fact that more discretionary spending is happening.
Right.
Clients are more willing to invest in strategic consulting when they feel good about the future.
Makes sense.
But Capco seems to have really found a niche for themselves in some areas that are growing really fast.
Oh, like what?
Like digital transformation and financial services.
Okay, so they're not just like general consultants. They have expertise
Yeah.
in areas that are really relevant to what companies are facing today.
Exactly. That expertise is in high demand right now because companies are trying so hard to keep up with all the changes and disruptions in technology.
It's like they're playing catch-up.
Yeah,
Wipro bought Capco back in 2021.
that's right.
Their goal was to, get better at consulting and tap into some new markets. Is that working out the way they planned?
It seems like it is. We're seeing that Capco is contributing to Wipro's overall growth and helping them win those bigger, more strategic deals.
Nice.
And it's also given them a stronger presence in important markets like the Americas and Europe.
So it sounds like that acquisition is turning out to be a pretty smart move.
It does.
But could Capco become even more important to Wipro's future? Could it become their main engine for growth and overshadow their traditional IT services business?
That's a really good question, and it's definitely possible.
Yeah.
Remember, consulting generally has higher margins than traditional IT services, and it's often seen as more strategic and less like a commodity.
So if Wipro can use Capco's expertise and their reputation the right way, they could shift more of their revenue to those higher margin consulting services.
Exactly. And that would be a big win for their profitability.
For sure. It's like a double strategy.
Yeah.
Their core IT services business is a solid foundation, but Capco is the high-growth, high-margin opportunity.
Right. The key is going to be how well they can combine these two businesses and use their strengths together.
So we should definitely keep an eye on how Capco is doing in the coming quarters.
For sure.
It could tell us a lot about Wipro's overall growth and profitability.
Absolutely. Now, here's another thing to think about. Could Capco's success lead Wipro to actually, rebrand themselves as a consulting-focused company?
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, could we see them being known more for their strategic advice than their IT outsourcing?
That would be a pretty bold move.
Right.
But I guess it's not impossible.
Not impossible.
You've seen other companies change how they present themselves as the market changes.
Right.
Like IBM.
It's exactly.
They used to be all about hardware, but now they're mostly a software and services company.
You're right. Companies have to adapt to stay relevant, and it seems like Wipro is taking steps in that direction.
Yeah.
Whether they go all in on consulting, we'll have to wait and see.
It'll be interesting to watch.
It will. Now let's shift gears for a minute.
Okay.
There's another important thing we haven't talked about yet, talent.
Oh, right. Every IT services company needs talent.
They do.
How is Wipro attracting, developing, and keeping those skilled professionals?
It's super important, especially in an industry this competitive. It's not just about finding people with the right technical skills either.
Okay.
It's about creating a culture that makes people want to come work there and stay.
So a place where people feel valued and like they can learn and grow and do their best work.
Exactly. Now, we don't have access to Wipro's internal HR data or anything,
Right.
but we can get some insights from what they say publicly and what they do.
Okay, so let's see what clues we can find about how Wipro handles talent.
All right, first, look at their commitment to diversity and inclusion. They've said publicly that they want to have more women and underrepresented groups in their workforce.
That's good. A more diverse and inclusive workplace can be a big draw for talent.
Exactly. Second, look at how much they invest in training and development.
Okay.
They've talked about programs to upskill their employees in important areas like AI, cloud computing, and cybersecurity.
That's smart.
Yeah,
The IT world is changing all the time, so people need to keep learning to stay competitive and engaged.
absolutely. And third, look at how much they emphasize employee well-being.
Okay.
They've started things to promote work-life balance, mental health, and flexible work arrangements.
Work-life balance is a big deal these days, especially in tech. It seems like Wipro gets that it's not just a perk, it's something important.
It is. Burnout is a real problem in tech, and companies that care about their employees' well-being are more likely to attract and keep the best people.
Makes sense. So even though we only see a little bit of how they do things, it does look like they're doing the right things to build a strong talent pipeline. Now, Wipro is a huge company operating in over 65 countries.
Right.
They must face some unique challenges just from working in so many different places.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
With all those different cultures and regulations and economic conditions, how are they navigating all of that complexity?
It's definitely a lot to handle. It's not just about having offices all over the place. It's about developing a global mindset
Okay.
and an operating model that uses the strengths of each region while still being respectful of the local differences.
So finding that balance between being global and being local.
Exactly. A big chunk of Wipro's workforce is actually outside of India.
Wow.
So they know a thing or two about how to handle this kind of complexity.
But even with all that experience, there must be hurdles they have to overcome to really do well in this globalized world.
Oh, yeah, for sure. One challenge is managing those cultural differences.
Okay.
They have to make sure their values and how they communicate works for employees and clients from different backgrounds.
Right. It's easy to assume that everyone thinks and works the same way, but that's
Yeah.
not true at all.
No.
Being sensitive to different cultures is really important for building trust.
It is. What other challenges come to mind?
I don't know what else.
Well, there's always the issue of regulations.
Right.
Different countries have different rules about things like data privacy,
Right.
labor practices, intellectual property, so many things.
Sounds like a nightmare.
It can be one Wipro has to make sure they're following all those regulations in every single country they operate in.
It's a lot to keep track of.
It is. And of course, we can't forget about the economy.
Go.
They have to be able to adjust to different economic conditions in each region.
Okay.
Some markets might be booming while others are struggling. They need to be flexible and agile enough to deal with those changes.
So it's not enough to just open an office somewhere and hope for the best?
Nope. And then there's the whole geopolitical landscape.
Right. The world is a pretty unpredictable place these days.
It is. We've got rising tensions and uncertainty everywhere. Wipro needs to be aware of these risks and have backup plans just in case.
It sounds like a lot to juggle.
It is. It's definitely a complex environment that's constantly changing.
Given all of that, do you think they're set up to handle these global challenges?
I think they have a good foundation to build on.
Okay.
They've been working in different countries for a long time now, and they've also made public commitments to diversity, inclusion, and sustainability,
That's good.
which suggests they're thinking about globalization in a responsible way.
That's encouraging. But are there things they could do to be even better at this whole global thing?
Well, one thing is focusing on talent localization.
Okay.
So hiring and developing more local talent in each region.
Makes sense.
That could give them a better understanding of local markets and build stronger relationships with clients.
It's not just about sending Indian talent around the world.
Right.
It's about finding great talent everywhere and creating a really diverse workforce.
Exactly. And they could also think about setting up innovation hubs in key regions.
Oh, interesting.
That would encourage collaboration and knowledge sharing between different parts of the world.
I like that. Imagine what they could achieve by bringing together all these different perspectives and expertise.
Exactly. And of course, they need to keep investing in the right technology and infrastructure to support their global operations.
Okay.
Things like cloud-based platforms, collaboration tools, and secure data centers.
So they need the right tools to achieve their goals.
They do. Now, we've talked about their financials, their strategies, and their global reach.
We have.
But there's another piece we need to look at, their leadership and their vision.
Right. Who's steering this ship and where are they trying to take the company?
Exactly. So
Yeah.
their current CEO and managing director is Thierry Delaporte.
Okay.
He took over in July of 2020.
Right.
And he's got a ton of experience in the IT services industry. He's held leadership positions at companies like Capgemini and Sogeti.
So he knows what he's doing.
Exactly. And since he took over, he's made it clear what his vision for Wipro is.
And what is it?
He wants to make Wipro bolder, simpler, and more agile.
Okay.
He wants to help clients navigate all the complexities of digital transformation.
So they're trying to move away from that image of just being an IT outsourcing company.
Right. They want to be seen as more of a strategic partner,
Yeah.
someone who is a thought leader and innovator, not just someone who can get things done cheaply.
It's a good goal, but a CEO's vision is just words without action. What has he actually done to make this happen?
Well, one of the first things he did was simplify the organizational structure.
Okay.
Fewer layers and giving more power to the business unit so they can make decisions faster.
Ah, the classic streamlining move.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually a good sign when a new CEO comes in and shakes things up.
He's also been making acquisitions.
Oh, like what?
We talked about Capco earlier.
Right.
But he's also acquired Rising, which is a SAP consulting firm, and Ampion, which is an Australian cybersecurity company.
So he's not afraid to make big moves and invest in areas that are growing.
Nope. He's also focused on talent,
Okay.
both bringing in new people and upskilling the people they already have. And he's really stressed how important it is to have a strong culture of innovation and collaboration.
So he's doing all the right things, it seems.
He is, but are these changes actually working? Is Wipro really becoming that bolder, simpler, more agile company he talked about?
That's the question, isn't it?
It is. Only time will tell for sure.
Wait.
But based on what we've seen so far, there are definitely some good signs. Their margins are getting better, they're winning bigger deals, and they're making progress in key areas like AI and cloud computing.
So they're moving in the right direction.
They are. But the work isn't finished yet.
They're still a work in progress.
Exactly. It's
Wow.
too soon to celebrate. But I think we can be cautiously optimistic about what Wipro can do under Delaporte's leadership.
Okay, now there's one more thing I think we should talk about.
Okay.
It's something that people usually don't consider when they're looking at a company's financials, but it can tell you a lot about how sustainable they are.
What is
Their
that?
commitment to ESG.
ESG. That stands for Environmental, Social, and Governance Factors.
Right.
It's becoming super important to investors who are looking beyond just profits.
It's not just about being a good company.
Right.
It's about recognizing that a company's success is connected to their environmental impact, their social responsibility, and how ethically they're governed.
Exactly. They're creating value for everyone, not just shareholders, but also employees, customers, communities, and the planet.
Wipro has a long history of being socially responsible, going all the way back to when it was founded.
They do.
They've been really involved in social causes, especially in education and healthcare. But how have they made ESG a formal part of their business? Do they have specific goals and ways to measure their progress?
It seems like they do. They've published detailed reports on their ESG goals and how they're doing in different areas. Things like reducing their carbon footprint, promoting diversity and inclusion, and making sure they do business ethically.
That's good. Companies need to be transparent and accountable when it comes to ESG if they want people to trust them.
Absolutely. And people have noticed they've been recognized by a lot of organizations for how they're doing with ESG.
Like who?
They were on the Dow Jones Sustainability Index for several years, and they've gotten high rankings from MSCI, which is a leading ESG rating agency.
Impressive. So it sounds like they're not just talking about ESG, they're actually making it part of how they do business.
They are, but does all of this actually translate into real business benefits?
That's a good question.
It is. It's something that people are still debating.
Okay.
But there's more and more evidence showing that companies with good ESG performance tend to do better than their peers over the long term.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, for one thing, companies that are environmentally conscious are often more efficient,
Okay.
and they're less at risk from problems related to climate change. They might also have an easier time finding and keeping employees because younger generations tend to want to work for companies that share their values.
So it's not just about doing good, it's also good for business.
Exactly. Companies that are socially responsible are also seen as more trustworthy and reputable,
Okay.
and that can lead to stronger relationships with customers and more loyalty to the brand.
So their good reputation can actually help their business.
Exactly. And then there are companies with good governance practices.
Mhm.
They tend to be better managed, more transparent, and less likely to have scandals or controversies.
Yeah.
And all of that can contribute to creating value over the long term.
So it's not just about avoiding bad press. It's about building a strong foundation for the future.
Exactly. Now, it's important to remember that ESG isn't some magic formula.
Right.
There are plenty of companies with good ESG scores that have struggled financially and vice versa.
So it's not a guarantee of success, but it's definitely something to consider.
It is. And in Wipro's case, their commitment to ESG seems real. And it's a big part of their culture.
Yeah.
Whether it has a direct impact on their finances, we don't know yet.
Right.
But it's a good sign for their long-term sustainability and their ability to attract investors who care about ESG.
It sounds like they're taking it seriously, which
Yeah.
is definitely a point in their favor.
Mm-hmm. Now let's look ahead. What's next for Wipro? What trends and challenges are going to shape what happens to them?
Okay, let's try to predict the future. What should we be paying attention to?
Well, one big trend that's already changing the IT industry is cloud computing.
The cloud.
Yeah, more and more companies are moving their stuff to the cloud.
Right.
And that's creating a lot of opportunities for cloud providers like Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud Platform.
So Wipro needs to be a big player in the cloud if they want to stay competitive.
Exactly. They've already invested a lot in cloud capabilities,
Okay.
but they have to keep innovating and stay ahead of the game as things change. It's not a one-time thing. They have to keep learning and adapting.
Right. It's a constantly changing environment.
Yeah.
What else is coming?
Another big trend is the rise of all those digital technologies.
Like what?
Things like AI, machine learning, blockchain, the Internet of Things, 5G.
All the buzzwords.
Exactly. They're changing everything, and they're opening up new opportunities for companies like Wipro to help their clients innovate.
So it's not just about keeping the systems running anymore.
Nope.
It's about helping clients use these technologies to actually transform their businesses.
Exactly. Wipro needs to have deep knowledge in these areas and be able to turn these complicated technologies into real solutions that provide value.
So it's about understanding the tech and how to use it to solve actual problems.
Exactly. And then there's cybersecurity.
Right. That's huge these days.
It is. As companies rely more and more on technology, they become more vulnerable to attacks.
Makes sense.
Wipro needs to be a partner that clients can trust to help them protect their data and systems from these increasingly sophisticated threats.
It's like a never-ending battle.
It is. The bad guys are always coming up with new ways to attack, so companies have to be on guard all the time.
And on top of all that, there's the changing geopolitical situation.
Right. We're living in a world with more nationalism, trade wars, and political instability.
And all of that can affect how Wipro operates globally and serves its clients in different regions.
Exactly. It's not just about tech and business. It's about navigating this really complex and unpredictable global situation.
So Wipro needs to be flexible, adaptable, and resilient to do well in this environment.
Absolutely. So we've identified a few key trends: cloud computing, digital technologies, cybersecurity, and the changing geopolitical landscape.
Right. Those are some of the big forces that are going to shape Wipro's future.
But in addition to those trends, there are some specific challenges that Wipro needs to deal with.
Okay, what kind of headwinds are we talking about?
Well, there's always competition.
Right.
The IT services industry is incredibly competitive, with tons of companies all fighting for market share.
So Wipro can't just sit back and relax. They have to keep pushing to stay ahead.
Exactly. Another challenge is getting and keeping good talent.
We talked about that.
Yeah, there's a huge demand for skilled tech professionals.
Right.
And Wipro has to compete hard to attract and keep the best people.
That war for talent is only going to get more intense.
It is. They also need to be smart about managing costs.
Okay.
Clients always want to spend less on IT.
Of course.
So Wipro has to find ways to be more efficient and explore things like automation.
So it's a delicate balance.
It is. They have to deliver high-quality services while also keeping costs down.
And on top of all that, they have to stay ahead of what their clients want.
Right. Clients are getting more demanding and sophisticated,
Makes sense.
and they don't want their IT service providers to just take orders anymore.
They want more.
They want partners who can help them solve strategic business problems.
So Wipro needs to be more than just a service provider. They need to be a consultant and an advisor.
Exactly. They need to really understand their clients' businesses and offer solutions that go beyond just technical stuff.
Okay, so we've got competition talent, acquisition cost management, and adapting to what clients want.
Right.
Those are some pretty big challenges that Wipro will have to overcome to keep growing.
They are. Now, besides all these external pressures, are there any internal things that could affect their future?
That's a good question. What do you think?
One key thing is their organizational culture.
Okay.
We talked about how they're committed to social responsibility and employee well-being,
Right.
but they're also a huge global company with a complicated structure.
So they need to find a way to hold on to their values and culture while also being able to move quickly and change when they need to.
Exactly. They have to make sure their culture encourages innovation, collaboration, and a customer-centric mindset.
If they don't, they risk becoming too bureaucratic and slow to react to the market.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot between stability and agility.
And of course, leadership is important.
It is.
We talked about Thierry Delport's vision and the changes he's made.
But being a leader is an ongoing thing.
Right, it's not just a one-time thing.
And it'll be interesting to see how well he can keep driving change and get everyone excited about his vision.
It's not just about setting a goal, it's about getting everyone on board and working together.
Exactly. And we can't forget about their financials.
Right.
They have a good track record,
Mm-hmm.
but they need to keep making money and generating cash flow so they can invest in their growth and give back to shareholders.
Profits are what keep a business alive.
They are.
Yeah.
Without profits, they can't invest in growth or reward their investors.
So we're looking at a lot of different things here.
Yeah.
External trends, internal challenges, organizational culture leadership, and financial performance.
Mm-hmm.
All of these are going to play a role in shaping Wipro's future.
They will.
Wow, we've covered so much in this deep dive.
They have.
We've looked at their numbers, their strategies, their strengths and weaknesses, and even tried to predict what might happen to them in the future.
It's been a great discussion. But remember, investing is about making smart decisions based on good research. We always encourage you to do your own research, look at everything carefully, and then make decisions that work for you.
We're just trying to give you the information and context,
Right.
but ultimately the decision is yours.
It is.
Now, as we wrap up this part of the deep dive, we want to leave you with something to think about.
Okay.
We've talked about how strong they are in areas like AI, cloud computing, and digital transformation.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, could Wipro actually become a dominant force in the industry and challenge those giants like Accenture, IBM, and TCS?
Good question.
Or are they going to stay a strong but second-tier player?
Yeah,
That's the big question. Can they really break into that top tier?
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what happens.
it will. And that brings us to like the whole point of this deep dive.
Okay.
What does all of this mean for you? We've gone over a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Their financials, the things that are driving their growth, their strategic bets, all those industry trends.
Right. But how do you actually use this information? Whether you're an investor, someone working in the industry, or just someone who wants to understand how these big companies work?
Well, the first thing is to figure out your perspective.
Okay.
Are you already a Wipro shareholder?
Okay.
Are you thinking about investing?
Right.
Maybe you're an industry analyst or even work for a competitor.
Yeah.
How you look at this information is going to change what questions you ask and what conclusions you draw.
So if I'm already a shareholder, I'm probably most interested in whether Wipro's stock is going to keep making money.
Right. Will they keep growing their profits and increasing shareholder value?
Exactly.
And based on what we've seen, there's some pretty good signs.
Okay.
We talked about their strong margins, their commitment to giving back more profits to shareholders, and those strategic bets they're making in AI and cloud computing.
Right. But we also talk about the challenges,
We did.
the competition, the difficulty of finding and keeping good people, and the need to keep up with what clients want. It's not a sure thing.
Absolutely. No investment is ever completely risk-free.
Right.
But if you believe in Wipro's long-term vision and their ability to make it happen, their current performance and direction suggests they could be a good addition to a well-rounded portfolio.
So what if I'm a potential investor, someone thinking about buying Wipro stock for the first time? What should I be looking at?
Well, in that case, you'd want to compare Wipro to their competitors.
Right.
Companies like Accenture, IBM, TCS, Infosys.
Right.
How do their financials look compared to Wipro?
Right.
How are they growing compared to Wipro? What are their strengths and weaknesses?
So it's all about how Wipro stacks up against everyone else.
Exactly. And you also want to think about your own investment goals and how much risk you're comfortable with.
Okay.
Are you hoping for fast growth, or are you more interested in stability and dividends?
Right.
How much risk are you okay with taking?
It's really a personal decision. There's no right answer for everyone.
Now, if you're an industry analyst or work for a competitor, you're probably more interested in understanding Wipro's strategic moves and how they might shake things up in the industry.
So trying to figure out what they're going to do next.
Right. Like, where are they going to invest? What markets are they after?
Right.
What new things are they developing?
Exactly.
By watching what they do and what they say publicly, you can start to see where they're headed and figure out what kind of threats or opportunities they present.
No matter who you are, though, there's one big question we should all be asking.
Okay.
Can Wipro keep up with this rapidly changing world?
That's the real test for any company these days. And from what we've seen, I think Wipro has a shot.
Okay.
They have a leadership team with experience, a solid financial foundation, and they seem open to change.
But they've also got some tough challenges ahead of them.
They do?
They need to keep innovating, attract, and keep great people, manage costs well, and stay on top of what clients need.
Right. The IT services industry never stops changing, and Wipro can't just sit there and watch it happen.
They have to be proactive
They do.
and agile and really customer-focused if they want to be successful over the long term.
I agree. Well, I think we've covered a lot in this deep dive.
I think so, too.
Yeah.
We looked at Wipro's performance, how they're planning for the future, what they're good at, and what they need to work on, and even tried to picture what their future might look like.
It's been a really interesting discussion.
It has. Remember, investing is all about making informed choices based on good research.
Absolutely. Do your own research, look at things from different angles, and make the choices that are right for you.
We're just here to give you some information and context.
Right.
But you're the one who has to decide.
And we'd love to hear what you think about Wipro. What were your takeaways?
Right. What questions do you still have? Join the conversation online and let us know.
Great idea.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive on a totally different topic.
Can't wait.
Until then, keep learning, keep exploring, and thanks for listening.